Dr. Charlie Rosier, and this is Daisy the Beagle. During lockdown, I've been doing a lot of teaching online at home, and Daisy's been in the room. She's been hearing all about medieval Europe as I've been teaching my students in my lectures and seminars. Now that lockdown has eased slightly, Daisy wanted to get out and explore some fantastic medieval sites around East Anglia, so we decided to go for a walk, record some things and tell you all about it. You're going to be hearing about the foundation of the abbey in the 7th century, the martyrdom of a king by the Vikings in the 9th century, and a good old-fashioned English riot in the 14th century. If you liked the video, please click like below and give us your comments on what you enjoyed and what you think we can improve for next time. Follow us on Twitter and follow us on Instagram. Okay, let's go. Daisy's ready. Let's get started. The ruined abbey is located in the south and eastern parts of the town centre. It's owned by English Heritage, but it's managed by St Edmunds Borough Council, who own the park in which the abbey ruins are located. Bury is best known for its medieval streets and the manufacturing of Green King beer. Has a population of about 40,000 people. It's a lovely place full of cafes and shops that you can visit in normal times. I'm standing in front of a 20th century cathedral. It was founded in the early 20th century in 1914 when they decided to create the Diocese of Bury St Edmunds. The church was originally a medieval church of St James located within the abbey precinct, and it was chosen to be the new cathedral because it was still intact. It survived the dissolution of the monasteries because it was functioning as a parish church. It was rebuilt in various stages over the 20th century. The tower that you can see if you visit the site was finally finished in the early 21st century. The town of Bury St Edmunds is first recorded in the early 7th century. Bede's ecclesiastical history tells us that in the 630s, Sigebert, king of East Anglia, brought a community of religious individuals to the town. Sigebert had been in exile in Francia, modern-day France, during his early life, and he brought back his Christian faith to this new region and decided to found a community in the area. Later in his own reign, he abdicated because he wanted to join this religious community. But when East Anglia was attacked by the Mercian King Penda not long afterwards, the rulers of East Anglia at the time travelled to the religious community and begged Sigebert to join their army so that they would be reinforced by his experience. He refused, but they dragged him out of the community anyway, and he joined the army only fighting with a stick because he didn't want to kill anybody. He was so devoted to this new religion. Okay, so I'm standing next to a modern statue of St Edmund, and you may be wondering, I'm in Bury St Edmunds. Who is St Edmund? Who was he and where did he come from? Well, he was the king of East Anglia in the 9th century, and this is a period in which Vikings are starting to attack England around the beginning of the century. They grow their raids bigger and bigger, and by the middle of the 9th century, they're trying to conquer large parts of England, resisted mainly by Alfred, King of Wessex, in the southwest, about whom you may know. King Edward was king of the Eastern Angles, East Anglia, and he met the Vikings in battle after they'd been encamped in Thetford, which is near to Bury St Edmunds, in 869 or 70. He's killed in battle and is claimed widely as being a martyr because he died at the hands of non-Christians, and his cult grows from there. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Come on, Daisy. In 986-8, Abbot of Fleury, who's a writer from Francia, is staying at nearby Ramsey Abbey, which is between Bury St Edmunds and Peterborough, and he's asked to write a new biography of Edmund as a saint, and this is later translated into Old English by Elfric of Ancient. And in that account, Edmund dies a martyr's death. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle had previously just reported that Edmund died, but in this new text, He's described as not wanting to fight the Danes. They tie him up, they torture him, they fire arrows at him, and then they decapitate him. It's a pretty awful, grisly martyr's death. But this starts a more legendary side of the story of St Edmund. There are statues of St Edmund on roundabouts in the town of Bury. The first one here is a steel sculpture of St Edmund designed by Emmanuel O'Brien and made by Nigel Keynes, and it shows Edmund tied up and being shot through with arrows according to popular myths about his death. This one is a wooden sculpture made by Ben Lufferil depicting a wolf howling next to Edmund's crown. This depicts another popular legend written by the early hagiographers, which claims that Edmund's head had been cut off and had been lost, but some passers-by heard it shouting, "Here, here, I'm here." When they got to the voice, they found the head being guarded by a wolf who turned very placid and followed the people on to where the burial site of St Edmund was going to be. So I'm here in the middle of the ruined abbey church at Bury St Edmunds. How did this church grow and who built it? Well, in 1020, King Knut, who's a Danish king, ends up ruling England, brings a community of monks from the Abbey of St Benet's, which is now in Norfolk, over to Bury St Edmunds to found a monastic community. In 1065, Edward the Confessor, King of England, made a Norman, whose name was Baldwin, abbot of the community at Bury St Edmunds. Edward had grown up in Normandy, spent a long period of his early life in exile there, and brought back various Normans before he became King of England in the earlier part of the 11th century. So in 1065, Abbot Baldwin becomes abbot here at Bury St Edmunds, and he spends a lot of the time rebuilding the new church. And in 1095, the remains of St Edmund are translated in a grand ceremony into this new abbey church. In the first half of the 12th century, Abbot Anselm constructs more buildings in this abbey complex, and by the time his church is finished, the church as a whole is 150 metres long and 75 metres wide, and you can see the scale of that and the impressive ruins that surround us, which Daisy is busily exploring in the background. This tower that you can see in the background here was also built under Abbot Anselm. It's the tower for the abbey church over 4 levels in a classic Romanesque style. Other works of art and architecture were built in this period as well. After 1095, a new account of Edmund's life was written by the monk Herman, including new miracles such as the claim that the ghost of Edmund had killed the Viking Sven because Sven tried to tax the town. Suspicious, perhaps. In the 13th century, histories of the local region were written by Jocelyn of Breckland, which mirrors a wider trend of writing local history in the period, and between 1121 to 48, an individual named Master Hugo completed the famous Bury Bible, which is now housed in Cambridge, and you can see in the image here. Also in the 12th century, a new copy of Edward's life was produced with lavish illustrations, now held in New York. All of that architectural and artistic talent and production comes at a price though, and by the end of the Middle Ages, Bury St Edmunds was one of the richest abbeys in the whole of England, owning most of what makes up modern-day West Suffolk. The people who live in the town have to pay taxes to the abbey for the right to buy and sell their goods and so on, and in a background of widening social and economic change in the later Middle Ages, in early 1327 they asked for a Charter of Liberties in order to free themselves of some of these dues. The abbey say no, and so the townspeople rise up and attack the abbey. They attack it again in February, in May, and in May they destroy financial records which contain the information that the abbey needs to tax and claim their debts off these people. So there's an atmosphere of distrust between the townspeople and the abbey, and at some point the gatehouse is destroyed, leading to this marvellous reconstruction in a 2-storey format sometime after 1327. The riot is quelled for a while when Queen Isabella, who's Queen of England, stays at Bury St Edmunds with Edward, her son, who's to be the future Edward III, but after that relations go badly again, and by October, some of the monks of Bury St Edmunds infiltrate a parish church service with weapons, take some people hostage, and take them back to the abbey in order to try and achieve their aims. This situation of mistrust rumbles on towards the end of the Middle Ages, and in 1381, in the Peasants' Revolt, the abbey is again attacked by the people of Bury St Edmunds in part of a much wider revolt going around the whole of England at that time. At the end of the Middle Ages, like many of the larger Benedictine houses in England, the Abbey of Bury St Edmunds is going through a bit of a tough financial period. In 1431, the west tower of the Abbey church collapses, possibly due to financial neglect and inability to maintain the buildings. In 1539, the monastery is dissolved by the movement of Henry VIII to close all monasteries, and the building basically becomes a quarry for local building projects. The only places that survive are the cathedral, the modern day cathedral, which is in the old medieval church of St James, and one other church also. Parts of the building are reused, as you can see in the amazing buildings behind me, which have been turned into modern day houses in the old west front of the medieval abbey. Daisy would really like to live in one, I think, so that she can keep tabs on what's happening outside all the time. If you enjoyed watching our trip to Bury St Edmunds Abbey, then hit the like button on the YouTube site, give us a comment below, follow us on Twitter and follow us on Instagram, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another adventure with Daisy.